Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon in this webinar about cybersecurity certifications. My name is Arij Albatine, and I am currently serving as the president of the Women in Cybersecurity San Antonio affiliate. So I would quickly like to share with you exciting news from the WiCyS national organization. So WiCyS is a national organization with a global reach. We have affiliates and chapters from all over the world with members from thousands of members. So right now, we just heard about the virtual career fair, the fall virtual career fair that's going to be from September 9th from 12 noon to 4 p.m. I would encourage all of you, if you're looking for a job, to join WiCyS and join the career fair. It has employers from all over the United States and above. And also, if you are currently a member, now there is a new WiCyS member community portal. This is live as well. It has so many advantages of using the portal in terms of communicating, networking with other fellow cyber professionals, updating your profile, submitting your resume, volunteering to be a speaker, and so forth. So it has been an effort that the organization was working on for the whole summer, and we're very excited to share that with you. Please, I would like to remind you to keep your microphone muted, and if you have questions, just send them via the chat. We will record all of these questions and answer them at the end. Right now, we're going to have our speakers, and I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Alan. And member benefits and in building successful education. 2003 after 17-year career at Ivy Tech Community College in Indianapolis. There he served as a computer technology instructor for 13 years, teaching certification curriculum from Cisco, Novell, and Microsoft. He was also director of the Ivy Tech Workforce Certification Program for over 3 years. He is a former member of the Novell Education Advisory Council and the 30 Port Academic Advisory Council. We're very excited to have him. Our next speaker is Paul Guido. He is CISSP and CCSP. He is also member of the IC Square, IC Square worked in financial sector for over 20 years and currently is part of an operation and security team. Welcome, Paul. We'll start with Alan. Alan, I have shared the presenting privileges with you. So if you would like to present, you can take it away.
Thank you so much for having me join you. And just to help me out a little bit, I'm not familiar with, if I want to share my screen, I just use the third button over from the left.
Yes, the share screen button.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining tonight. And I've been asked to talk a little bit about our CompTIA's Security Plus certification and discuss some best practices. So I'm not sure if everyone has the ability to ask questions or if there's a chat window where you can do so. I'm happy to take questions during the time that I'm talking. I know we're going to have some time for questions at the end. So what I'd like to do is just introduce Security Plus, and I'm going to share my screen. It works. There we are. Okay, is that, I can't quite tell, is that sharing the certification exam objectives? Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
This exam was developed by CompTIA many years ago, over 10 years ago, I believe, and it was really done at the request of the Department of Defense. At the time that CompTIA developed this exam, we only had the A+ exam and the Network Plus exam in our collection of certifications, but the DoD was looking for something to help with their Directive 8570 and to have some kind of competencies recognized in the military personnel and the military and the contractors that were working with the military to attest to their cybersecurity skills. So this exam was developed, and as you can see from the title here, we're on the 5th iteration of the exam, and the 601 exam will actually be released in just a few months in November of 2020. So a new one is on the way. And if you're currently taking a course oriented towards this particular version, don't worry about seeing the new exam, because we do always have a overlap period for our academic partners so that you can continue to work on and prepare for the 501 exam. So it will not actually retire until the summer of 2021. During that time, both exams will be available. I would share the 601 exam standards with you, but right now they're embargoed for another month or so, so I'm not able to share those, but they will be available about 60 days prior to the exam release, which will be in late September. The reason I'm displaying this is I just wanted to give you a little information about the exam and talk about some of the things that you can expect to see if you're preparing for this exam. We actually update this exam every 36 months and sometimes sooner, because the exam is accredited by ANSI and the ISO standard 17024 to keep it current and relevant with the technologies that exist. So that is a process that once we get the exam done, we have about a year to rest on our laurels until it's time to start working on the next version. And so you know a little bit more about how CompTIA does the creation of our exams, we do not have an exam writing staff that whose job it is to just prepare questions. We actually work with subject matter experts all around the world who we bring together at our headquarters outside of Chicago to help develop the standards, which you're going to see in just a moment, and to also do the item writing for the questions. We do that. That's part of the reason the exam process is so long, because we are having these experts come in and do the preparation with us and for us. Those subject matter experts are drawn from not only academic institutions, but also the business world, the military, and independent cybersecurity organizations that are experts in their field. As you see here in the middle of the screen, it does say that a minimum of 2 years experience in IT administration with a focus on security is recommended as preparation. What I tell people who are preparing from an academic standpoint is if you have equivalent experience that you've acquired as part of your studies, that will usually take care of most of the prerequisites that you need for this particular exam. Let's scroll forward a little bit and tell you about the exam. It is a 90-question exam, and you have 90 minutes to to cover all the questions. The passing score is on a 100 to 900 scale, and currently the 501 version has a passing score of 750. And you see here what the exam covers in a very broad way. There's 6 different broad domains, and each of those domains covers a multitude of questions, but this shows the percentage of questions that are drawn from each of the domains. The bulk of the exam is on domain 1 and 2, and then slightly smaller percentages on architecture and design, identity and access management, risk management, and cryptography, being the least most frequently asked question on the exam. This is what our exam standards or exam objectives look like. And the reason I bring this up is I was asked to talk about exam preparation. So if you are serious about taking this test, this document is actually the roadmap to what's on the test. What you'll find is that things that appear on the exam objective list will be on the exam. If you find something, if you're preparing with some other information or working from a different book, and you see some information you think might be on the exam, you can always check on this document. One of the other things, I'm going to scroll forward to the end of the document. One of the other things that you'll find here is this several page list of Security Plus acronyms that may or may not be discussed in depth, but you may need to know them because they may appear on the exam. So we list all of these in alphabetical order with a the actual acronym is spelled out, the actual term is spelled out here. And as you see, this list goes on and on for several pages. So you always have this as a reference. During my introduction, you heard that I was a former professor at a college in Indiana. When I was teaching CompTIA-related courses, this was something that I always made sure that my students had access to. Of course, when I finished my teaching career, Security Plus wasn't out yet, but for A Plus and in particular Network Plus, I always made sure that the students had access to this document because, as I said, this is the roadmap to the exam. And my practice was to have students check off things that they felt like they were familiar with, and to circle or some otherwise designate things that they felt like they were not familiar with as they prepared for the exam. We also have at the end of this exam objective list, if you're preparing and you want to have do some of the labs or the activities that are mentioned in a course, these are some of the things that would be handy to have. Not all of these items are required, but they're certainly used by people who are in security careers, and having access to these tools or software or hardware equipment items is very useful while you're preparing. Now I'm just going to go back and talk about some of the exam objectives. We'll go here to, this is domain number 2, and if you remember, this was about 20, just a little over 20% of the exam. So how it starts off is simply the title, and then it talks about all of the areas that are going to be on here. And objective 2.1 is install and configure network components, hardware and software based, to support organizational security. So you see how that breaks down in this particular example to several dozen terms organized under what device they work under. For example, here's things you'll see with routers, here's things you'll see with switches. So all of these things are covered somehow in domain 1.1. And this is the section where I would have my students mark things that they knew, that they were confident about, and also designate ones that they felt that they needed more preparation time. You'll also see questions on the exam, and this is probably one of the more important study tips or preparation tips that I'll share with you, is occasionally you will see in the domain list an objective like this. 2.2 says, given a scenario, whenever you see those words, you can expect what a lot of people consider the most difficult type of question, but it's a question that may include a graphic where you have to actually perform a task. So we call them performance-based questions. Some people call them scenario-based questions. But instead of having a multiple choice question with 4 possible responses, that you may be required to use your mouse or keyboard to move an image around on the screen to actually complete a task. You may be required to go through a process with your with a menu that appears on the screen, but it's not just going to be a 4 choice multiple choice question or 4 answer multiple choice question. So keep in mind this as you're preparing the what the given a scenario means. Usually you'll see about 10 to 12% of any of our exams will be taken up by scenario-based questions. Now, having said that, I want to tell you that out of the 90 questions that we have, there are several different forms of the exam. We have several hundred questions prepared for Security Plus, as we do with all of our exams, and those questions are mixed up from one exam administration to the other. But you might get one of the forms of the exam that only has 5% scenario-based questions. You might get one that has 15% scenario-based questions. So it really pays to have some time where you can work in the lab and do those types of preparations to where you actually can perform tasks. Here's another one. Actually, here's a couple more. Given a scenario, analyze and interpret output from security technologies. So as you look through the objective list, you'll see, here's the first one here in domain number 3 is really understanding definitions and be able to explain what they mean. And then right away you get into given a scenario. So you're going to see several different scenario-based questions. I'm going to pause for just a second. I don't know if there's anyone that has a question so far that I can answer, but I will pause if there is. Okay. I just saw a question. Is there any benefit to getting Security Plus certified as a high school student? About 4 years ago, I was visiting a school in Washington, D.C., and the teacher there said, "How many people are teaching Security Plus at the high school level?" And I actually did a count when I went back to my office the following week, and there were only 66 schools teaching. We now have several hundred high schools across the country that are actively teaching Security Plus to students, usually at grade level 11 or 12. The benefit that you might encounter, and I'm not sure how it is for your current college, but a lot of colleges, like the place where I used to teach, if you came in with a current certification that had not expired, we would grant you credit in certain courses that map to those standards. So that is one advantage, is you or your family may not have to pay tuition, and you may not have to buy books if you can simply present the evidence of successfully passing a certification. Need a little help here. I can see the questions popping up, but they fade away pretty quickly. Is there some way that I can move the screen back to where I can see the other questions? I saw another one that asked about the differences between Security Plus 5, version 5 and version 6. Okay, there we go. Thank you. One of the right now I have access to those exam standards. I can't really discuss them at this point because they are embargoed, but they will be available in just about another month, where you can download them from our website. And when you look for our website, don't look at www.comptia.org. Look for certification.comptia.org. All of our 13 exams have their own special section on that page that will link you to all the standards and things like the exam objectives and so on. Any other questions before I move on?
I have a question.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So with taking this test, as far as in regards to the experience, I know some places they want to have proof on your resume or some sort of sponsor. So my question to you would be, for this particular test, do we have to show that we've worked in IT for a couple of years, as well as getting a sponsor? Or can we just go ahead and just apply for the test and go from there? Thank
Oh,
you.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking. So, yeah, you don't have to have. If you schedule the test, you could actually do it, this afternoon if you wanted. You could go on to the testing center website, buy an exam, schedule the test, and you could take it. We don't ask, excuse me, for any evidence or proof of your past experience. There are organizations that will do that. We do not. We simply recommend that, and that recommendation you heard me say earlier, and it's also in the front part of our exam standards that we were looking at before. That's a great question.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and continue because I know time goes a lot faster when you're talking than you think, so I don't want to run out of time. One of the other tips that I would strongly recommend is, and I've taken and passed 26 different certification exams in my life because as a teacher, I was teaching several different specialties, and this is like anything else. Once you start down this path, there's always new technology coming out that you have to keep up with and pass the next version of a program. So with a CompTIA test like Security Plus, if you pass Security Plus today, it's going to be valid for 3 years before it actually expires. You have several different options on renewing it. But before you take a test, I strongly recommend that you acquire a practice test, whether that's one that's put out by CompTIA or one of our many, many different competitors. There's many high quality practice exams that are available. Sometimes I refer to those as test simulation software because many people have test anxiety. They sit down in front of a computer-based test and they can freeze. I'm glad that I don't have that particular anxiety, but it's just hard to assess your knowledge by yourself. And even if you're being given exams as part of a college class or part of another type of learning experience, it's still hard to assess your knowledge without going through and trying to do some kind of written assessment that will measure you in the same way that the actual test does. And what I mean by that is a certain specific number of questions and a timed experience in order to take those questions. So as I mentioned, CompTIA sells practice exams. Many other companies do. When I was taking some of my exams, CompTIA was not in the business of doing practice exams, so I used those from another organization. And the people that develop those do a pretty good job. I would encourage you to stay away from what some people refer to as brain dump sites, because the folks there are actually stealing questions. They will go out and they'll get paid to actually memorize questions from the test and come back and regurgitate those to the owner of the brain dump site. We monitor those on a pretty regular basis, and whenever we can, we try to have those shut down because we're looking for people who really have the ability to internalize this information. Certification is about mastery. It's not about getting a C plus. Sometimes I remember my college career, I'd not be very well prepared for a test, and if I got a C plus, I would fall on my knees and give thanks because I wasn't as well prepared as I should have. But on a certification test, that would be out of the question. So that's why after of those 26 exams that I've taken and passed, I've only had to take 2 of them a second time. So those happen to be the 2 exams that I did not use a practice exam as part of my preparation method. So take that for what it's worth. But I strongly recommend that as a study mechanism. I also recommend if you have the ability, I don't know if everybody's still on a distance learning mode right now or whether you have the ability to collaborate, but working with others in a collaborative setting and discussing or even quizzing each other on different concepts. I'm a big, as part of my teaching, I always like to give analogies about to try to illustrate a particular concept. And sometimes I have good ones, and sometimes I had poor ones. So having the ability to collaborate and discuss, talk through a particular section with someone else was always very useful in doing that part of my preparation. So I just thought that would be something I would also suggest for the group. And if you're doing a practice exam, as you saw earlier, the 750 score out of a 900 scale is not, you can't really equate that to a 100, 90%, 80% scale like you would on a test probably through your college. But I recommend that on a practice test, you try to get that 750 score or higher, and 90% or higher, because the exams are about mastery versus just getting by. I just saw a comment about someone has a difficult time finding collaborators, so I'll leave that to somebody in your group to try to put together a study group and collaborate via distance learning or Zoom or some other mechanism. But I definitely recommend that. I know that I am getting close to the end of my time. It's 5:28. So are there any other questions that I can answer?
Yes, we have a question about the cyber analyst, which is the WiCyS Plus and Pen Plus.
Yes.
So how to best prep for those as well? So
I would say the same answers or the same methods would be applicable to both of those exams. Those exams have just come out. In fact, we just are revising Cybersecurity Analyst. The new version is now out, and the old one will be retiring soon, or the original one will be retiring soon. Those actually sit at a level. Think of them as two sides of the same coin. Pen test being an offensive, trying to break into network, kind of a certification, and cybersecurity analyst is the person who's trying to learn techniques to defend a network. So somebody who had both of those certifications would be extremely valuable and would have a very broad perspective on network security. Those sit at a level higher than Security Plus. Before you take on either of those tests, I would definitely recommend being Security Plus certified. And then we have a fourth certification called Advanced Security Practitioner, which is really someone who would work at an enterprise level in a large corporation and manage all aspects of security. So it even has some more detailed information in that test than you would find on any of the others. Pen test and cybersecurity analyst, by the way, because of the whole recent emphasis on people breaking into networks and trying to make sure that our data is secure. Those have been our fastest growing certifications in the history of CompTIA. They have both taken off very quickly and have become very popular. We're seeing a lot of our college partners adopt those. I just spoke to a university this afternoon that was starting, I think, pen test, they're starting in October, and then cybersecurity analyst early in 2021. Do you have the exam standards for those? Can I send those to you so you can distribute those or put them on I don't know if you have a website for your organization or not, but I'll make sure I send those to you if you'd like. Okay.
Yes, we do. That will be great. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. I'll send those off. I see a
you.
question. Are the exams online?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and just answer that one. The exams, you have to take them at a Pearson Test Center, Pearson VUE Test Center. However, as of April, we are doing online proctored exams for the same cost because so many people have closed their test centers during this global health crisis. So you do have the ability when you are registering to choose either an in-person test center or a remote proctored center. They will give you special information about what type of equipment and what type of facility you have to have. You have to have a room basically with a door that you can close if you're taking it remotely, but you also have to have a very good internet connection, and Wi-Fi is probably not the best. So is there anything else I can answer?
Thank
All right.
you,
Well,
Alan.
thank you.
There are more questions coming in the chat. We will have we will answer those at the end or after our second speaker finish.
Okay, now I am going to have to depart. So if you want to email me those questions, I'll be happy to respond written version if that's all right. Maybe you can distribute those to your members. All right. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to join. I appreciate it. Good luck to everyone if you take the test.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Paul, please, you can start your presentation.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm a big fan of everything that Alan was talking about there. Let's see, that's not the screen. That's the screen. And there we are. And if you do not have any security certifications, I really recommend Security Plus. That list of acronyms and everything else that he was talking about is really good foundational information to have if you're dealing with any certification in IT. I know people that I've mentored that have gone from Security Plus to the security analyst to the advanced test that he talked about, the CASP. From there, I was able to work with him, and he got his CISSP, which we're going to be talking about here in a minute, and then he got his cloud certification. After that, he just continued on. It was just amazing the amount of tests that he was able to accomplish in just a matter of a couple of years. It was it even surprised me. The gentleman was just unbelievable. So my name is Paul Guido. I work at a local financial institution. Prior to moving there in February, I was at Broadway National Bank for over 2 decades. And then prior to that, I worked for a couple of value-added resellers, one here in town, one in Corpus Christi. And I've just been very fortunate in my career. One of the things that I really recommend, if you do not have a college degree, please get one. It will put your resume near the top of the list. And I do not have one, so it made it a little more difficult for me to change jobs and stuff. It takes a little longer to find a job if you, especially in the security area, if you don't have certifications, if you don't have a degree. Of course, 2 decades of experience really is helpful, but having a degree and everything else goes hand in hand with the Security Plus from CompTIA, the security analyst test as well. I'm what's like you were saying, a defender. I'm a blue teamer. I've been defending financial institutions for over 2 decades, and I continue to do so. If you wanted to reach out to me, I'm at Radio Teacher on Twitter. I'm not the most exciting Twitter person to follow, but I do contribute from time to time. The International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium, ISC squared is what everybody calls them. Why certify and when? Why earn ISC squared certifications? Employers want proof of the expertise, very similar to what Alan was talking about, that they need. Maintaining an ISC squared certification, you have to document that you do continuing education. Currently, I believe it's 20 hours per year. I don't really look at that much because I far exceed the number of hours. I think it's 100. No, it's 30 hours per year. It's 120 over the course. So also you have to pay an annual fee to them for your certifications as well, for the maintenance of annual maintenance fee. Why do ISC squared as well, or CompTIA even? Get you past that human resources filter, just sort of like getting past that filter, having the degree, right? When is a good time to get an IT security certification or any kind of certification in the field that you're excited about? main reason or main time to do that is now, right now. In 1994, I was concerned that I was getting into computers too late. There are already 65,000 people certified in Novell, and I knew that I was there too late. So rather than worry about it, I went ahead and did it and got into the thing. Right now is not too late. There are plenty of opportunities for everyone, whether it's Security Plus, ISC squared certifications, whatever. There's time and opportunity for everyone out there. And I truly recommend, if you want to get started, there are plenty of places to get assistance, help, and everything else. And I'll be talking about that here in a minute. The primary one that everybody kind of talks about, the grandfather of all the certifications, the CISSP. It's been around a very long time. I'm very fortunate that one of my mentors is somebody that has a 4-digit CISSP. He was one of the first 10,000 people. As a matter of fact, he could have been sooner than that because he helped write some of the original items on the tests. His name is Jeff Rich. And if you'd like to meet him or whatever, I'll be talking about him a little bit later on. They do a test prep at UTSA for the CISSP, and he does that test prep for them. So this is what somebody asked about earlier. So for Security Plus, you pass the test, you're Security Plus. You don't need any formal information. You don't need an endorsement. You don't need document years of experience. You pass the certification test. You are certified for that test or for that level. So whether it's Security Plus, Security Analyst, CASP in CompTIA. But for the CISSP, they want you to have 5 years of valid security information or a security background in 2 of the 8 domains in the common body of knowledge, the CBK, everybody kind of talks about. If you do have a 4-year degree or you have a Security Plus, then 4 years is all you need instead of 5. So that's handy, right? So if you want to get a CISSP and you have a degree or Security Plus, and I have used this during an endorsement to trim a year off the deal so they can get a full-blown CISSP. Another very popular certification that they have right now is a Certified Cloud Security Professional. Cloud is a very important field, and it's also an area that unfortunately a lot of people have misconfigurations in. A lot of times the people that are doing and writing the code are code people, not necessarily networking people or security people or whatever. So to try and make sure that people, when they build those applications, build them securely, they really need someone kind of watching over their shoulder to make sure that they're taking all the proper precautions to roll that out securely. I mean, too many times you hear in the news that there is an exposure of a large cache of data in an S3 bucket in Amazon or in other locations. And a lot of that is due to misconfigurations. Now, there is something called an associate CISSP. Let's say you don't have the 5 or 4, depending on the situation, years of experience. You can still go and pass the CISSP test, but you'll just be an associate CISSP until you get the requisite years of experience. So there you go. If you want to learn more, I'm going to go ahead and drop some of these in the chat here when I get done with the presentation, some of these links. ISC2.org is the primary website for ISC squared, and all of their information and background for the certifications are there. They have specific ones for health and also for software development. There's another one, CAP, as well. And they're about ready to come out with one that we were kind of waiting for it at any time, but it's going to be a privacy related certification. These are the 8 domains. I know of very few people that have a high level of knowledge in every single one of these domains. Some of these require background in the law to consider the legal aspects of security and security risks, physical security, how to, make sure that everything's built right from physical or a, is the lock going to be strong enough in the data center door? I know that's silly, but it's true. Um, uh, but that gives you some idea of the different areas, including my area favorite is security operations and security risk management. The test itself, the questions are called operational items, but there's some experimental items mixed in. So there are a lot of scenario type questions on the test. And sadly, that most of the answers are correct. And you have to find the best answer for that individual question for that area. It is a bit, you have to read everything very carefully. One word in the sentence in the question could make all the difference between the answer is this answer or the next answer down. So there is a lot of concentration and thought has to be behind each answer of the test. Thankfully now it's an adaptive test, so only 3 hours is the maximum, and there's a maximum of 150 items. Now that's a variable amount. There have been people that you pass right at 100 questions or 104 questions and you're done. Formally, it was 250 questions in 6 hours. When I took the test, it was 5 hours and 15 minutes. After about question 180, I just knew I had failed. I just knew it. And the only reason I continued on is because I can't get the experience getting these items in front of me like a practice test as well as the actual test itself. So I stuck with it and answered every single question, even though I knew in my heart that I had failed. When I got the actual report and it said congratulations on it, I thought it was wrong. But I actually did pass that test that day. And then soon after they made the adaptive test. Adaptive test is just as valid as a test as the test that was the long form in my view. I've taken, like Alan said, I've taken probably 24 or more certifications since 1994. And I've taken adaptive, I've taken long form. Long forms just beat you up more, right? So I'll get to some of those questions here in a minute. But please keep them coming in the chat and we'll go back and review. So when you pass, you provisionally pass, right? And that's similar to what we were talking about earlier with the deal. Security Plus, you pass. This, you provisionally pass. Now you need to find somebody that can endorse you to and help you through the endorsement process. You need to find someone that's a CISSP to endorse you for your CISSP. I've endorsed 4 or 5 CISSPs already. I like the process. I actually have streamlined it as much as possible to make it as easy as possible for people to complete the process and get all the requisite data even before they go take the test. Because it just helps it a little bit. It's like, I passed. Now I have to go through and do this. But it can take up to 40 days for them to process that, business days, before you actually get your official CISSP information. So that can be quite frustrating for the person. Trust me, it's the longest 40 days, especially after you pass. So I try and make that as seamless as possible whenever I work with the people. Resources. Locally, the organization that I cannot recommend enough is Alamo ISC Squared. That is the local chapter of ISC Squared. It's run by my friend Sonny Montiel and another great group of people. They meet on a monthly basis. I think if you're not a member, it's $8 to go to their meetings that are virtual. But they usually have some wonderful speakers and they're well attended. Last time I think it was like 70 people that came online to go to that meeting. The one also that near and dear to my heart, I'm on their board of directors as their communications manager, is Alamo ISSA. To join us, who actually join International ISSA and pick us as a chapter, and that's how that happens. It's a little bit different. Alamo IC Squared, you actually join the local chapter and stuff. So IC Squared, the international group, that's their website. They have all the information on the tests and the certifications and stuff that they have. They have a community site that's actually part of their website. I'm actually on their community site as radio teacher. I'm a ham radio operator, and I've taught the ham radio tests in the past, and actually a volunteer examiner. So where the radio teacher comes in, I've only had that since about 2003 or so. ISC Squared Security Congress is a large convention that they do. Of course, this year, like about everything else for the pandemic, it's going to be online. And it's very reasonably priced as well. I think it's only like $400, and it's about 40 hours worth of content. I've been to the one that they had in Austin 3 years ago and New Orleans a year after that. Excellent, excellent speakers, very in-depth, very knowledgeable, amazing organization. If you need to study, I used Cybrary, which now is a monthly fee, and so is IT Pro TV. Both of them are very, very good resources for any of these types of tests that you might want to take. I'd probably lean more to IT Pro TV than Cybrary, but they have an excellent, excellent instructor by the name of Kelly Handerhan that has taught me a lot. I wish I could meet her and shake her hand. About some of the mnemonics and some of the things to remember and things, like almost everything in the OSI layer 2, is it 2? 3, the IP layer, starts with the letter I. Any protocol that starts with the letter I, except like one of them, IMAP, I think it was, all are layer 3. Oh well, nonetheless. Another thing, if you're someone that actually creates jobs and job titles and job descriptions at your location, I really recommend reading over the NIST framework. That framework is really nice for making sure you have the knowledge, skills, abilities, and you can complete certain tasks that make sure that you're applicable or in the proper place for a particular role. Like if you want to be a CIO, make sure you can do these things that they have listed there. And I think it's very comprehensive. It was built for government positions and government roles. Another awesome resource is now online. I think it starts in September. This is a live 40-hour course that preps you for the CISSP. It's two local instructors here. Jeff Rich is the CISSP. He's the one that is my mentor, and I can't tell you that it's amazing the work that they do with the this particular prep. So let me go ahead and get to those questions. I think what do I got to do? Look at chat. Okay.
If you would like, I can read you the questions.
Oh, that's fine. I mean,
I'm looking.
No, that'd be fine. Go ahead.
Okay. The first question is, what jobs a person can get with a CISSP compared to security?
That's a great question. Security Plus is like entry level. Make sure that you understand the vocabulary and the actions and everything else that happen in IT. So it's just a nice, well-rounded, foundational type certification. IC Squared's CISSP is generally considered something for someone that's managerial or more technical for, like a lead defender for an organization, a CISO or a CIO. but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to do those kind of roles. I know there was one city that was talking about in their IT department, all of the lead IT people, they all earned a CISSP so they could keep a security mindset. One thing that I did not mention is prior to getting a CISSP, I would talk about things in terms of hardware. Like you get this Cisco device, you put this in here, you add these lines in it, this ACL, this access control list, and that's how you're going to keep the bad guys out. After my CISSP, I completely changed my language and my thought processes when it came to security. I thought in controls, not necessarily individual products. I didn't think of individual companies or anything anymore. I looked at things in a much more holistic view to try and find the right control to take care of a problem, not necessarily, and it could be an administrative control, right? That's also a control, right? You build a policy for that. So it's a lot different than prior that my mindset prior to doing the CISSP. I'm sorry, go ahead now.
I have another question if you're done.
Yeah, please.
Would you suggest looking into associate CISSP if we don't have the experience, or focus on other certs until we have the 4 years of experience?
Well, it depends if how much background you have, right? If you have the background and managerial type information and knowledge that you can feel comfortable doing a CISSP test, do it. The gentleman that I worked with that had a Security Plus that was getting ready to expire, and I told him, get that intermediate CompTIA one, and then he did that one, and then after that, about 4 months later, he got the highest level CompTIA one, and he kind of went up the whole run, and every single test built on his knowledge. Then he moved over to ISC squared CISSP, and he was able to add the legal aspects and some of the other things that go onto it. So I like that because it's like a stair step of knowledge to get there rather than you're just, drinking out of a fire hose.
Right. Another question says why ISC Square is having 5-year experience as a prerequisite. Other certification exams like SANS don't have any prerequisite related to experience.
I'm not exactly sure. This question I had my mentor Jeff here. It is considered. This was an old prerequisite that happened back in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, when they were trying to determine what they were going to do for a broad certification across multiple things. And it's evolved a lot, similar to what they were saying with we're on the 5th iteration of the CompTIA Security Plus test. Same kind of deal. The CISSP test has changed dramatically over the years. It used to deal with telephones and modems and stuff. There's none of that on the test today. Everything now is fairly current. So I just don't have a really good answer. I think what they really wanted to do is to make sure, almost like a 4-year degree. They wanted to make sure you had the experience to do the jobs that would require a CISSP.
Question. Does graduate study account for the years of experience?
Yeah, you can get 1 year of experience. No, from what I've read, either a Security Plus or a 4-year degree takes care of 1 year of the time period. It doesn't take care of all 5 years of it. But if you look at the information that's within the common body of knowledge, there's a lot of things that people do. Let's say you're a bench tech at Best Buy, right? And you work on a remediation of viruses on people's computers as part of your job, right? That's a security operations type work, right? and also you're recommending products to keep people secure. Those types of things can be equated to the security common body of knowledge, and you'd be surprised how you could get those and apply them to different areas there. You know, that plus a degree, you know, there's a lot of things across.
All right. These are the questions that I see in the chat. I would like to ask you about what is your best advice if somebody, gonna get out of this discussion. Number one advice, would it be to pass those exams? What would it be?
Study as much as you possibly can. I studied before I took 5 months to study. Then I took a week-long course with GIAC, the SANS organization. They have a kind of a prep that is a boot camp kind of thing for, I want to say it was 44 hours of training. It was pretty intense for 6 days. And then after that, I took their certification test and passed it. So I've got that experience behind me, and I took their practice test for that test. Then about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I ended up doing the CISSP and passing it. But even through all of that, I I still feel that nothing really prepared me for that first test. It was just so much different than anything I've trained with. When I did the cloud security test a while later, I felt because of the work that I'd done, it better prepared me. I just went right through it and was able to answer it very well.
Okay. We know that the cost of these tests, are high, especially for people who are not currently working. So, do you have any advice on how to manage the cost and, or before attempting to take the test and pay for it? What should we do?
Well, there are a lot of companies out there that do pay for their employees to get these tests taken. If it's something that aligns with their position in their job, or if they need to have that kind of professional on their staff, someone with that certification, that's always been a benefit to being in the right position in IT. You know, going back, I started off my very first job in IT. I worked for a value-added reseller in Corpus Christi, Texas. I did construction prior to that. I was 30 plus years old, and I was a sales assistant. I took care of sales orders and stuff to get my foot in that door because it's so hard to break into IT. I didn't have IT experience. I had really good carpentry experience, but I didn't have IT experience. And so that first job, now prior to that, I did have a lot of experience doing networking, but it wasn't really commercially applicable. I did amateur radio networking. I connected computers over radio networks and stuff. So a lot of ham radio, what you would consider hacking now. That's what we were doing then. We were taking things that were not designed to communicate digitally and turning them into digital systems and extending it across South Texas. So I learned frame tracing as a hobby for fun at night while I was doing carpentry, and I did that for many, many years. But when I go for a job interview, how do I equate that to something that will actually help me in my position? I worked out of that sales job within a year and was an engineer and certified, and was actually like prior to Google, I was the person they would call and ask for things because they didn't have the books with them or they didn't want to look it up. And I've got a very good memory for things. So that was very, very helpful.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Paul. It was a pleasure having you. I would like to inform everybody that we're hanging out. We can stay, until 5:30 if you want to stay with us. But I understand some of you will disconnect. Thank you for attending. the information that speakers have shared, I will forward them by email. Alan has sent me an email as well with all the information he mentioned. We will be happy to share it with y'all. Please, if you like to stick around and speak with our speakers, unmute your mic and feel free to mingle and ask questions.
Thank you, Arish. Great job. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, Amanda. Right.
Hi. I do have a question. I know that you mentioned about the UTSA. Does that cost money?
Yeah, I think it's like $1,600. You know what? There's links from the presentation in chat here.
Yeah, I dropped the one, Paul, that is the sign up for info, but I don't know the cost either.
It's down the page from
Okay.
from that deal. So here we go. Okay, let's see if that links work. There you go. So that bottom link there should take you to it. It's got the sign up information, but if you just keep scrolling down, it'll go down. 1629. Jeff likes to say it's the best value in CISSP training in San Antonio. And I know
And
it's been very, very successful with the candidates that have taken the class.
how many days is it?
I don't know. I know it's 40 hours, but I don't know.
Okay. All right.
They
Thank
do
you.
have the listed required materials there as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Our Lady of the Lake also, we teach the master's program and we expect that to pass the exam after they finish the 30 hours of studying and getting the master in information systems and security. So that's another resource if you are interested.
Excellent.
I remember the books closely followed one of the domains and things like that.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I
Can you
remember some of the
repeat that,
books followed
please?
the domains closely.
Yeah, they
Are they
do, and there was an older 8-domain set. The thing make sure that you are looking at current books and documentation. There are some older books out there that will not be applicable. So the best thing to do is go find out, like the gentleman from CompTIA was talking about, that this is the version of the test. You want to study for that version. The same thing here. There'll be a version of the test, and you can kind of align to make sure that you're getting the proper test, regardless of what company you're testing with.
I purchased the most recent book for
Then you'll be fine. Yeah. And once again, even though you study those things, it's just not like the test. I mean, as much as you want it to be, it's almost like I'm trying to think how to, like the answer is a horse, but it gives you all 4 answers are different types of horses, right? So you have to pick the right horse to for the answer is for the test. And it's really it's very interesting to go through the exercise of doing it. Also, that after that 5 hours and 15 minutes, I was literally exhausted. I could just barely get out of that room and stuff. And when they handed me the piece of paper, I read it 3 times like a test question. I really recommend reading those things 3 times. Make sure you know what you're doing and what you're answering, what it's looking for. And I still couldn't figure out if I'd passed, provisionally.
Thank you for the information. It was really good today.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
And also, if you have any questions about the CompTIA stuff, I can help with that some too. Like I said, I'm a big fan of their test sets as well. Especially if you're just starting out, there's so much to know on how things actually communicate. Even Network Plus and stuff. I've never taken those because I learned it long before there was any of those tests available. But whenever somebody's trying to come up in the organization, I really recommend it. You know, there was something I meant to add. Krebs on Security had a post. Let me go look that up. On becoming a cybersecurity professional, and it was an excellent post. It was only a couple of weeks ago. I'll find that and drop that in there as well. Kingpin, it wasn't that long, but yeah, it's everybody pretty much read it, and everyone agreed that this is really well done. Because he gets a lot of questions like, how do I become a cybersecurity professional? Yeah. Wasn't that long ago. Here we go. Thinking of a cybersecurity career. This is another excellent article on how to get started in cybersecurity. Yeah, hopefully.
Thank you for the poll. Yeah, thank you for the link.
Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, it talks about some of the different organizations and stuff. Women Society for Cyber Jiu-Jitsu. So if there's anything else, please don't hesitate to send me a note. You've got my email address, but also send me stuff on Twitter if somebody wants to get a hold of me at Radio Teacher, DM me or whatever, and I'll get back with you. So yeah.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. You also mentioned one of these links that you shared. They also have some other courses about, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned healthcare. Am I right?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
You mentioned besides cybersecurity courses, they also have some healthcare, I think, courses.
For healthcare organizations?
I think so. You mentioned that. Do you remember when you were talking about the links that I think Alamo or one of those certificates you were talking.
Alamo ISC squared or Alamo ISSA.
Yeah, which one?
Well, they're both very good organizations. They're both here in town. And so going back through, if you go up, scroll up in the chat, both of those organizations, I have links in there that was put in the chat at 5:04. They're the top two links. And those are both local organizations and very well supported. Alamo ISSA is a little larger than Alamo ISC squared, but they're both excellent organizations. And I support them wholeheartedly both. If someone's looking for a cybersecurity job, there's generally a recruiter there looking for people to pick up and to help out. And it's a good deal all the way around.
No, but this is not my question. Sorry. So I asked that you mentioned also one of them, maybe also another link I'm not sure which one. You said that they also have other certificates related to healthcare
Oh, the
or
ISC
data
Squared does.
science.
ISC Squared has a health certificate or certification that is specific to healthcare.
You
And
mean ISC?
yeah, here 1 second, I'll find that for you and show it on the
Oh.
screen here.
You know, I am looking for something that relates cybersecurity to data science, which is mostly maybe privacy, which is in the middle. So that's why I'm looking for some resources or some certificates that helps with that area specifically.
Now, this healthcare one, I imagine it also would require a certain amount of I'm trying to see if it's got a prerequisite for how many years of service you have to have prior to doing that. So let's see, how do I do that? I want to share content. Yeah. So at the ISC2.org, the certification, it's HCISSP, Healthcare Information Security and Privacy Practitioner. Obviously, they're very concerned about your PHI, your personal health information. So you can look at the guide that they have and some of the other information. You can check out their common body of knowledge for that particular exam and see if it's something that you would find be applicable for what you're looking for. Also, it talks about the different areas that people would normally have for those types of jobs as well. So it kind of give you some idea there as well.
Okay, thank you. But no, I didn't receive the link if you shared.
Oh, no, here, 1 second. Got it.
Thanks. I
All right.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, no, my pleasure.
Thank you, Paul. One more question we received about the difference between Security Plus and the analyst, cybersecurity analyst.
The Security Plus is, let's say, the entry level certification where CISA, or I think is what they call that, the security analyst, is the intermediate certification. Like going up a ladder, every time you run up that the next step, you have to have a bit more knowledge and a bit more depth in knowledge in different areas. So really recommend Security Plus if you're going to start down that path. Take that test and then take the analyst, and then depending on how successful you feel and how comfortable you feel with that test, attempt the CASP, the CASP test as well. CASP and CISSP in the government's eyes is the same level of test, whether it's but unfortunately, many hiring managers still feel the CISSP is better than the CASP test, but not in the government's view. I'm trying to remember, he mentioned the 8,000 document that's has to do with government positions and what you need for certain positions in the government for cybersecurity. And wherever it has CISSP, it almost always says CASP as well, CASP, which is CompTIA's version of that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thank you. That is very helpful.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? Okay, I guess no more questions are coming in. Thank you so much, Paul. It was really a pleasure having you. And we look forward to have you again in the future in a different format. And thank you everybody for attending today's webinar. Please consider once you join us, you also have to be part of the national organization, and you can reap all the benefits that organization has to offer. Thank you so much, and the recording of this webinar will be available on our website shortly after we're done with today. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.